Now let's move towards further session. Honorable dignitaries, distinguished guests, esteemed speaker, and all enthusiastic participants, a very good and warm morning to you all present here. I, Dr. Brunali Gharpure, coordinator of this session, feel privileged to welcome you all on behalf of our organizing committee of 3 days national international conference Sushruti 2024, the and Un saga on infertility. We are thrilled to witness such enthusiastic participants and highly learned audience gathered to deepen their knowledge, understanding of this topic. Nowadays, reproductive problems in both men and women are rising at alarming rate. Infertility has significant negative impact on the lives of couple and eventually community. The most common overall cause of female infertility is the failure to ovulate, which occurs in about 40% of women with infertility issues. So we have arranged today's session, which aims to bring the light on modern aspect of ovulation induction. We are honored to have with us an incredible distinguished speaker, expert who have made meaningful contributions in the field of OBGY. She has a wealth of knowledge and experiences, making this seminar not only informative, but also an enriching experience. Moving ahead with session, I would like to invite respected Dr. Divya Ramgude ma'am, Professor and HOD of D.Y. Patil Ayurved Nehru, and Dr. Sushma Rathod ma'am, Associate Professor and HOD, Government Ayurved College, Vadodara. Ma'am, please come on stage to chair this session. Divya Ramugade ma'am and Dr. Sushma Rathod ma'am. Ma'am, please come on stage. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to invite our today's esteemed guest speaker, respected Dr. Samita Devi, ma'am. Ma'am, please come on stage to grace the dais. Please give a big round of applause to them. Please. Now, I would like to request Dr. Archana Pandey Jumle, ma'am, to present the bouquet to welcome our chairperson of this session, Dr. Divya, ma'am, and Dr. Sushma, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Dr. Divya Ramugade, ma'am, to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Samita Devi, ma'am, with floral bouquet. Thank you, ma'am. Now, let me introduce our beautiful speaker to you all. She is MBBS DNB. She has done fellowship in infertility and masters in reproductive medicine and IVF. She is the director and chief IVF specialist at Pune IVF Fertility Center. She has dedicated infertility practice since more than 10 years with consistent result of more than 75%. She is the best debutant winner in Pune OBGY Society. She is invited as a guest speaker and faculty at various national conferences. She has contributed multiple chapters in various books. She has received prestigious Dr. Harshad Pasnis Award for the Best Poster Presentation at Annual Conference 2023. She has also received Spurti Award at AMOGS 2024. Really, we are honored, fortunate to have such dynamic speaker with us today. Now, without further delay, let's start with the session. I would like to request our honorable speaker. Please start the session now.
Okay. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Yeah. A very good morning to one, and I think this is not playing. A very good morning to the dignitaries on the dais, of the dais, colleagues, and all my dear friends. I'm honored to stand in front of you today to deliver a lecture, especially after such an eminent speaker has already delivered such an enthusiastic talk. So it's like performing after Amitabh Bachchan has given his best shot. So I'm the medical director and chief IVF consultant at Pune IVF Fertility Center and Research Institute, which is located in Pimpri Saudagar. So this center, not just it's a state of the art fertility center, but how it is different than many other centers is that we also inculcate the Ayurvedic concepts in our center. We do follow the Uttarbas and we have lot of Ayurvedic consultants attached to our centers. And probably that's the reason I'm standing in front of you today. So without further ado, let's start the topic. I seek blessings from Saraswati Devi to help me sail through this presentation, especially in time. The learning objectives of today's presentation would be, for ovulation stimulation, we need to know what are the gonadotropins. So I would like to focus on the types of gonadotropins, the preparations available, the different protocols, agonist, antagonist, the different protocols that we use to stimulate the ovaries, the procedure of ovum pickup, oocyte screening, ICSI, etc., and the newer techniques which improvises the results. So it's an honest confession that I cannot complete the topic in the given time of 20 to 25 minutes. So in case you feel that I'm overshooting the time, do not hesitate to stop me. So let's start the topic. Let's understand what the gonadotropins are. There are three main preparations of gonadotropins, that is HMG, FSH, and HCG. These three preparations are of three types. They could be urinary, they could be highly purified urinary, as well as recombinant. So when we talk about urinary gonadotropins, it could be HMG, it could be FSH, it could be HCG. So these three gonadotropins are available in urinary gonadotropins. So urinary gonadotropins, they are made from the urine of postmenopausal women who have large amounts of FSH in her urine. So urinary HMG, it contains equal amount of FSH and LH. Significant amount of urinary proteins, hence they are antigenic. We also find batch-to-batch variations when we use urinary gonadotropins, and most of the time the route of administration is intramuscular, hence it is quite painful. So the disadvantages of urinary gonadotropins would be batch-to-batch variation, that is एक पेशेंट पे अगर आपने यूरिनरी गोनाडोट्रोपिन यूज किया आपको अच्छा रिजल्ट मिला, हो सकता है नेक्स्ट पेशेंट में अच्छा रिजल्ट ना मिले. So that is the reason, that is the cause of batch-to-batch variations. Being intramuscular, it becomes very painful and hence not so patient-friendly. Then came highly purified urinary gonadotropins. So these are also made from the urine of postmenopausal women. HMG HP, that is highly purified, contains equal amount of FSH and LH, wherein the urinary proteins are less than 5%. Hence, they are not antigenic. Batch-to-batch variations could be there, but they are very minimal. Route could be intramuscular as well as subcutaneous. So it becomes less painful, it becomes less costly too. Then comes the recombinant technology. In the recombinant formulations, we have FSH. You all must have heard about recombinant FSH. We also have recombinant LH and recombinant HCG. So the technology used to create the recombinant gonadotropins is genetic engineering. So there are total absence of urinary proteins, hence it is not antigenic at all. Contents of FSH and LH are in the purest isoforms, so the consistency of active product can be very well assumed. There are no batch-to-batch variations since it is a genetic engineering technology. Route that we use is subcutaneous, therefore it is very less painful and therefore it is very much patient-friendly. But the drawback is obviously it comes with the increased cost of the treatment. Next, let's barge into the different protocols that we use. So why do we need different protocols to stimulate the ovaries? Once we give gonadotrophins, obviously all the follicles will grow at their respective pace. But we do not want the follicles that are growing fast to grow fast and ovulate. Otherwise, there is no meaning to stimulate multiple follicles. So therefore, the introduction of agonist and antagonist has come into the cycle so that the LH gets suppressed. So I'll talk about GnRH agonist protocols first, that how they work. Mechanism of action for GnRH agonist is nothing but upregulation and flare-up followed by downregulation. So GnRH agonists initially have a similar effect like GnRH. So what is GnRH? Basically, gonadotrophins are nothing but the hormones, the set of hormones that stimulates the gonads. Gonads means the ovaries in females, right? So what we are talking about is gonadotrophin agonist protocol. So agonists will have similar action as GnRH. They bind the receptors which amplifies the synthesis and release of gonadotrophins, that is FSH and LH. This causes upregulation of receptors and thereby facilitates ready synthesis and release large amount of gonadotrophins. This large amount of gonadotrophins will definitely give large number of oocytes, large number of follicles at least. So this particular effect is called as flare-up effect, which we witness in agonist protocol. So followed by the flare-up effect, when the GnRH receptors get exposed to this agonist for a prolonged period, the cells lose the ability to respond to the stimulus with their original sensitivity. And hence, the gonadotrophs become desensitized and they slowly get downregulated. Slowly and steadily, the FSH and LH levels will fall down. So, the estrogen and progesterone will also fall down, hampering the ovarian steroidogenesis. And this will give rise again by positive feedback mechanism to the FSH and LH rise. So, we have 7 approved GnRH agonists available in the market, but currently buserelin, leuprorelin and triptorelin are the most studied ones and which are easily available. So, when we talk about GnRH protocols, GnRH agonist protocols, we have long protocol, short protocol, ultra long and ultra short protocol. So, the rationale behind using agonist or antagonist, as we have already discussed, it's downregulation of pituitary gonadotrophic function, which allows prevention of premature LH surge until full oocyte maturation is achieved. So what we are aiming for is not just follicles, we want good quality follicles, we want good quality beach, we want the most mature, the most shuddha beach out of it. So therefore we try to avoid LH surge into the stimulation protocols. So these are the 2 protocols which have been extensively studied. One is GnRH agonist long and the other one is short protocol. So the short protocol is started wherein cycle day 1 or 2, along with the GnRH agonist, we also start the stimulation drugs on the same day. As we have already seen, agonist, firstly they flare up, that is they give a rapid rise of FSH and LH and thereby the follicles take its own pace. This particular protocol was criticized because they said that it's unphysiological, and even I agree with that. Being physiological is such an important topic, I've just realized with the previous lecture. So what happens is, with the high LH levels in the follicular phase, it disturbs the early follicular phase, and therefore it is harmful for the growing follicles, and therefore the results had gone down with this protocol. Then came the gonadotrophin agonist long protocol. In this protocol, what they have done is, they have started, because they did not want LH rise in the follicular phase, they made sure that LH has risen a cycle before. That is, they used to start the agonist from cycle day 21 of previous cycle. So previous cycle, they used to give 1 mg per day of GnRH agonist, and they continued it till the time the women had her menstrual cycles. Once she had her menstrual cycles, according to the antral follicle count and the AMH and all the other factors of fertility that she suffers from, we calculate a dose of HMG or FSH and we start her stimulation. The day we start a stimulation, we reduce the dose of agonist by 50% and we continue the same dose till the time the oocytes achieve their maturity. So the long protocol is given 2 to 3 weeks. So this is the criticizing factor, because a patient taking injections for 2 to 3 weeks continuously, it's quite exhaustive and quite emotionally taxing for the patient. So the GnRH is usually, as it is started in the previous cycle, mid-luteal phase, followed by the stimulation of complete downregulation. So it was criticized because it is expensive, it is very long duration, and more gonadotrophins were required. Followed by these two protocols, there happened a meta-analysis of almost 22 randomized clinical trials, wherein they said that the long protocol was much more times superior than the short protocol, although it was more expensive and although it was for more duration of time. Coming to the disadvantages of this protocol. So, as I've already mentioned, due to this protocol, there has been an increased consumption of gonadotrophins as a result of complete suppression of endogenous FSH and LH. Cost of treatment did rise. Thirdly, the estrogen deprivation that has happened gave the patient the symptoms of hypoestrogenism. So, hypoestrogenism symptoms are like hot flushes, vaginal dryness, decreased libido, insomnia, and again disturbing the circadian cycle. Since there was a need for another protocol, because the agonist was not really a very patient-friendly protocol, there arose a need to prevent the LH surge, but also to prevent the other harmful effects of agonist. Then came into picture the antagonist protocol. So, mechanism-wise, antagonist protocol, what it does is, it competitively binds to the pituitary GnRH receptors and causes hormonal suppression. So, there is no initial flare-up, there is no down-regulation, there is no total shutdown and hypoestrogenic symptoms. So, within hours of giving antagonist injection, the LH gets suppressed immediately and the follicle takes its growth at its own pace. So this is how the antagonist protocol works. Almost 90% of IVF center or 90% of their patients use this protocol. So if you want to take down just one protocol and remember just one protocol, you should remember this one. So antagonist protocol, we start the gonadotrophin injections from day 1 or day 2 of the cycle. I've already got a notice that the time is out, so I'll try to run away. Okay, so we just monitor the cycle, that we assess the antral follicle count and we start the gonadotrophins. On day 6, we reassess the response. If any one follicle we find more than 14 millimeter, we start the antagonist and we take it further till the time we achieve maturation. Advantages are, of course, the cycle duration is less, therefore cost is less, and with the same success rates as agonist. But also the biggest advantage is that we do not have any chances of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which is the only emergency thing that happens with the IVF protocols. Again, the same thing, complete absence of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome is the USP of antagonist protocol. So, coming to the procedure of ovum pickup, because we have now stimulated the ovaries, we have to do something with the eggs. So, ovum pickup is nothing but the oocytes are gently aspirated from the ovarian follicles with the help of fine needle, which is guided by transvaginal ultrasound probe, and it is done under general anesthesia. Can you play the video, please? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, right. So, let's stop. These are the videos wherein. So, this is the procedure wherein the eggs are retrieved in the operation theatre. If you can appreciate the needle, we aspirate the follicles. Further, this follicular fluid is passed on to the IVF lab, and in the IVF lab, at the same temperature, we maintain the follicular fluid and we screen the good quality oocytes into the follicular fluid. So this is how the follicular fluid comes to the test tube, and this follicular fluid is passed on to the IVF lab, maintaining the same temperature throughout. So further, as the fluid goes to the IVF lab, the embryologist screens the good quality oocytes out of the follicular fluid. On the same day, the husband is made to give a semen sample, and out of each good quality egg that has been found out into the follicular fluid, we inject one egg manually with the help of ICSI. I'll be showing you. So this is semen analysis of the fresh semen sample that the husband gives on the same day. Further, the embryologist does ICSI from the each and every oocyte, and this is the procedure of ICSI. There is a lot more about this, but I think the organizers are running short of time, so I'll just run with the procedure. So this is what I was about to show you about the detailed procedure of ICSI, why it is better than IVF, etc., etc. What is blastocyst? What is required to make good blastocyst? Newer techniques to improvise the result, that is laser-assisted hatching, wherein we give laser shots to the embryos to increase the implantation of the embryos. Further comes also the PGTA techniques, that is we can actually screen the embryos for their genetics by taking a biopsy of the inner cell mass. This not only increases the chances of implantation but also reduces the chances of abortion. So this is how the procedure of embryo biopsy is, and that's all for now. I'm extremely thankful. In case you wish to connect with us academically, you can always join our Telegram channel, Pune IVF Academics, where we promise pure academics. In case you wish to start up your own IVF center and you need help to set it up and medico-legal issues about the same, Team Oosphere is there to guide you. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this informative, wonderful session. I'm so sorry, but we are running out of time. Yes, ma'am. I would like to request Dr. Divya Ramugade, ma'am, and Dr. Sushma Rathod, ma'am, to felicitate our guest speaker with memento and certificate. Thank you, ma'am. I request Dr. Manjusha Karakare, ma'am, to felicitate this session's chairperson with memento and certificate. I request Manjusha, ma'am, to felicitate Dr. Divya Ramugade, ma'am. I request Manjusha ma'am to felicitate Dr. Sushma Rathod ma'am.
Now I would like to felicitate our coordinator of this session, Dr. Mrunali, by Dr. Sushma Rathod ma'am. Thank you for this session. Now we are concluding this session and handing over the mic to Dr. Neha Rathod for the next session.
Hello, we have an announcement to make. On our delegates group, we have shared a link for the NEMA journal. We request you all to please click on the link and register yourself for the journal. It's a request from the organizers that please click on the NEMA journal link and register yourself for the journal. Thank you.